Oh God, I love talking about partner stories that I've heard of because associates can be really gossipy, like in a good way, right? I think you find Big Law to be just such a weird environment. And then as you go along through it, it's fun to share your experiences with your friends, with your former classmates, all of that.
When you hear the term Big Law, you usually immediately hear it followed by horror stories of how terrible it is to work in Big Law. But how commonplace is the bad stuff, and are there any good things that we don't talk about that often? Hey guys, I'm Angela Vorfall, and in today's video, I have a huge treat for you because we are going to dive into the good and the bad of Big Law with the incomparable CeCe Xie. CeCe started to create content about what it was like working in Big Law during the pandemic and absolutely blew up. She is huge on TikTok. She has a YouTube channel, on Instagram, on every social media platform there is. And in addition to being a content creator, she's also a writer, she's a law school professor, and she's a law firm entrepreneur. And her style of being incredibly transparent and genuine about what that process was and what that experience was like for her is absolutely intoxicating. So I know you guys are going to love this, and I can't wait to dive in. So with that, CeCe, thank you so much for joining us and for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we were just talking about how Big Law is incredibly infamous for the horror stories about the work and how associates are treated. And so that kind of begs the question, is that really the norm? And even if it is there anything good to be said about Big Law? And so I wanted to ask you, what in your experience is the best thing about Big Law and the worst thing about Big Law?
Yeah, so it's funny because I think sometimes Big Law gets a bad rap, and people even watch my videos, and I think I'm being pretty positive about Big Law, and they're like, wow, you're just like totally trashing the culture. And it's funny because I think so much of it is subjective, right? Like what you hope to get out of Big Law or your career, and then how it lives up to that. And I actually really liked Big Law, which is why sometimes when people think I'm trash talking Big Law, I'm actually a little hurt because I really enjoyed my experience. And I think for people who approach it the right way, there is a way to have a really good experience in it. And I think some of the best things that I really even miss to this day are it's really smart people, really sophisticated work. And like you really do get, I know people say this all the time, blah, 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 the training, but it's true. The training was fantastic. I went from not knowing anything about what being a lawyer was like to being very prepared and like feeling very prepared that, oh, one day if I wanted to do this by myself, I could. And it's more than just, how to be a lawyer, but it's also just how to work in a corporate setting, how to navigate like the corporate politics of any situation. I feel like once you get a grasp of all of that in a really traditional, large institution, you can see what you would like to change for a smaller institution. You just get a better sense of the world. So I really, really enjoyed that. And the work is pretty cutting edge because clients aren't coming to big law firms for like their rote daily work, right? They're hiring at that amount of fees and that rate because they have really something like interesting or that they don't know or that is new. So I think it's really, really good training if you approach it that way and if you take control of your career in such a way that you get that training. And also, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the money is really good. There's no really other path directly out of law school when you basically don't know anything where you can make so much, and it really helps you put a major dent into paying back student loans.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said that because I think you're right that we talk about the challenging side, the bad side, the infamous side of Big Law, and not a lot of people leave space to talk about the good and the exciting and the benefits. And so if you'd be open to it, is there something in particular about Big Law that still kind of sits with you today that was not an amazing experience and may even prevent you from considering going back?
Yeah, I mean, I think the worst part of Big Law is just the unrelenting sense of availability and hours that you have to be on call. And this is true even for a lot of the partners, right? It's not like you become partner and then you just get to go golf all day, although some partners, they do that. But I think when you first enter the law firm, you're not quite aware of how much work there is for essentially the rest of your career. It is a very client service industry. So if you work with partners who can't say no to clients, if you yourself can't say no to clients, then you are at their whims when it comes to availability, responding right away, always being available on weekends and evenings to be at their beck and call. And I think it's kind of a trickle down effect, right? So if you work with a partner who isn't good at doing that, then you will be subject to those same demands. And if you then become partner and you're working with clients who have come to expect that from you, then you're also not ever going to be able to get some distance from the work. So I think it just comes to a lot of client management, which some people are great at, some people aren't. And I think lawyers kind of run the gamut when it comes to people skills. I think that's kind of the hard part, is that so much of the industry is about just luck and taking on the institutional clients that you do have, getting handed down clients. And if you bring in clients, hopefully you get credit for it. And there's just a lot of opaqueness and uncertainty in the whole process, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think can be a little frustrating. And especially if you are kind of entrepreneurial or you have your own ideas, it's a little bit harder to get the partnership to listen to you and actually hear you out earlier on, because they're profitable machines. They're like behemoths. So they don't as much care what you fourth year associate have to say. And I think after a certain point, right, if you want to take control of your own career a little bit more, then you either work within the systems of Big Law, which you can certainly work within them. You just have to do a little digging, and no one's going to hand those solutions to you. Or you have to figure out yourself, but on your own. But I think the one thing I really won't miss is just being able to look down at my phone and see, oh, I got this email at 10 p.m. and have that anxiety of, should I be responding right away?
Okay, so the next thing I wanted to ask you was, with those two things in mind, is there a particular day or maybe particular 2 days in Big Law where you identify them as the best day you had in Big Law and the worst day you had in Big Law?
Yeah, I think for a lot of associates, they will say that the day that they get their bonus is one of the best days, because it is really jarring and rewarding to see a huge chunk of money just appear in your bank account on that day, and it kind of feels gratifying for all the work you put in the previous year. On a more personal fulfillment level, though, I think anytime I was able to really work on a new issue for a client, some area that they weren't so sure of. I was a privacy associate, so really helped clients with the California Consumer Privacy Act, the CCPA, and being able to think through what those laws meant for them, and then getting to present something, and then also having them really be grateful for that work product. I think that's really gratifying on an intellectual level. And, if all my days were like that and also weren't 24/7, I think that's a really sustainable model of Big Law for me, because it is cool to think about new things and to be able to help people with new problems. That's something I even like to do to this day, and I think that stays there. In terms of worst day, I think the worst day is realizing that you have to start managing people. And in the beginning, I think if you really care about managing and you care about doing it right, you often do it wrong. So what I mean is, when I was a junior associate, I really hated fake deadlines. I thought they were kind of disrespectful to my time and everything. So when I was able to first assign work, I would assign work out and not give any fake deadlines, just kind of give the real deadline, give myself, I don't know, an evening to look things over and figure that's okay. But the first time I did that, junior associate just blew through the deadline and then sent me something at 10 p.m. that was completely unusable. And I was like, God, well, the client needs it the next morning. So I had to stay up until 5 a.m. just redoing everything. And that was a bad day just because I didn't get a lot of sleep. I don't like having to stay up late. I don't enjoy that. And part of it was also just realizing that all of the things I hated, there was maybe a reason that the mid-level or the partner did it that way. And that when you first get assigned, or no, you don't even get assigned. The first time that you're asked to maybe delegate something out, you don't get a lot of support. No one tells you or gives you guidance or tips for, hey, just so you know, I know fake deadlines suck, but this is how you should do it if you're working with someone new. No one really tells you how to properly give feedback, how to manage work streams. I think project management is a huge asset in big law and really any kind of corporate work environment that doesn't get a lot of training. I think I was talking to someone and they were saying how law is one of the few industries left where you have a bunch of people who are good widget makers, and then they take one widget maker and then they make them the manager of all the widget makers.
So one of the things you always hear in the discussion of big law is the number of billable hours that associates have to hit, and in the same breath, the amount of money that associates are paid. And so from your perspective, do you feel like the billable hour requirements versus the pay is a fair trade?
Yeah, I think if you actually stick to the billable hours requirement and don't go completely over, which I think is what happens to a lot of associates and then makes it worse of a trade. But I mean, I think I calculated it out when I first started, and it's something like you get like $100, a little over $100 an hour as a first year associate. And this was back when I was a first year associate. So it's actually probably a little bit more now because of all the salary raises. And I think $100 an hour is like really good. It's like good pay, you know? So if you can stick to that, 1950, 2000 billable hours, it's really not so bad. I think the issue comes when you are blowing past that. If you're spending a ton of time on non-billable stuff, or you just can't spending a lot of time outside of work just thinking about work, because that's like not billable. It's not non-billable. It's just like time taking up your mind. So, if you can really compress the amount of time that you work into that 1950 with like a little bit non-billable, then yeah, it's a great trade. I think the issue is that it expands. You don't push back, and then you do a lot of billable work. You don't push back on non-billable work, and then you do a lot of non-billable work, or you just think about work even when you're not doing either. And I think that's when the per hour trade-off doesn't make as much sense, right? Like, even though I say, oh, it's like a 24/7 job, it's a 24/7 on-call job. If you are bad at turning off your brain and your attention on something because you're on call, then that's something that mastering that will help a lot.
So the next thing I wanted to ask you was the best and worst partner stories that either you've experienced or you've heard of.
Yeah. Oh, God. I love talking about partner stories that I've heard of because associates can be really gossipy, like in a good way, right? I think you find big law to be just such a weird environment. And then as you go along through it, it's fun to share your experiences with your friends, with your former classmates, all of that. And I think the worst partner story I heard was there was this one partner who clearly, I think, was on some kind of power trip, realized that his power as a partner meant that he could tell associates what to do. So he had a rule that associates could only go to sleep after the sun rose or after he goes to sleep. And the issue was he didn't go to sleep until after the sun rose. So the associates were every night staying up until sunrise and then going to sleep, except the partner could sleep in until noon because there's not a lot of things he had to handle until then. But the poor junior associates, they had to wake up at like 7, 8 to get a document from the other side to turn around comments. So they were really, really sleep deprived. And this was just like a policy, a rule. He regularly had like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. conference calls with the team. And I think at that level, that's not for productivity's sake. It's not for efficiency's sake. That is just purely because you can.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's comical hearing it as if it didn't happen, but then actually kind of stepping into the shoes of those people and knowing that that is not outside the realm of reality at all is just also makes your blood boil because yeah, there's not a lot of checks and balances on partner behavior. And these different partners can run their own cases and deals, and very few, if any times that I can think of, did a partner step in for on behalf of another associate to try to regulate partner behavior. So that is terrifying. What about a good partner story? Do you have one of those?
Yeah, no, I think, there are a ton of good partner stories as well, right? I think part of the partners have varied people skills does mean that you kind of have the best and the worst all in one partnership, all in one firm, all in the legal industry. So I think the best partner story I have is I was really used to just being on call for everything, like dropping things on weekends to hop on calls. And I was at brunch one time on a Sunday, and there came in an email about scheduling a call right then and there for something. And I was like, oh my God, I have to like be on this. I have to take this. So basically spent all of brunch just sitting in the elevator lobby of this restaurant, typing notes on my phone while my food got cold. And I was like, oh, this like kind of sucks. Like, but I was also like, this is part of the job, right? Like, this is part of the job. So I did all this, and then after the call ended, completely my food had gotten cold, which is unfortunate because it was pretty tasty. But then had a catch up with the partner who was also on the call, and she was like, "Oh yeah, like you just to let you know, you didn't have to be on that call." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, it was a last minute thing. This is my client. Like you don't have to blow up your weekend all of a sudden just for this." And I think she understood much more so that she was a partner and this was her responsibility, her client, and I was an associate. And I think taking responsibility for things is something that some partners definitely don't do, but she really understood kind of what it meant to take responsibility and also what wasn't really associate responsibility because, I mean, you do get paid, but what do you get paid for? And kind of drawing contours around that rather than I own all of your time.
Yeah, the fact that she acknowledged that is huge. I don't even know that I can think of a memory where that happened, where it was like, hey, this isn't your role, this isn't your job, this is my responsibility. So that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's all partners really need to do is to help associates draw a little bit more what the boundaries are and what the expectations are, especially if they have more reasonable expectations. I think oftentimes as you get more senior, you forget how anxious being junior can be. And you just like kind of assume, oh, hey, here, do this. And you don't realize that sending an email at 6 p.m. will lead to someone just ruining their evening or canceling their plans, especially if you didn't really need it until like 2 days later. So I think being able to put yourself in the recipient's shoes is really helpful and a valuable skill that I think the best partners do have, because then they can kind of communicate around that anxiety and help you manage your expectations, like recognizing that there is a power imbalance.
Yeah, completely, completely. So given all of the content that you've created and the amazingly transparent way that you talk about your experience in Big Law, I've always wanted to ask you, if you could go back in time, would you have chosen a different job, first job out of law school?
No, I don't know what else I would have done. I mean, I think the alternative is try to do something a bit more like arts and entertainment-y, because that's more what I practice now. But I think I've always been a person who wants to experience whatever the mainstream thing is. And I think part of that is I'm an only child, I'm an immigrant. So like from a young age, I was always like, oh God, what are other people's experiences? And like, how do I have that experience too? And I think in high school, it manifested as things like dating, going to prom, like sleepovers, stuff like that. And in law school, it manifested as doing big law recruiting, like having that summer associate internship experience, because it just was what it seemed like a lot of my peers were doing and also what the school pushed you to do. So I did want to have that experience, this thing that it seemed like so many other people wanted or to do, just to understand why people might want it, what they get out of it, like what I might get out of it. And even in college, I did a consulting internship for a summer because it was the summer where a lot of people were doing either finance or consulting internships. And I hated my consulting internship. I like walked away from that and I was like, oh man, that is not for me. But I was still really grateful that I did it because I feel like I really tried the thing that was apparently what was a big deal back then. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not for me. So I just, I want to be where the people are. And that's where the people were. And I did learn a lot from the experience. I do think it set me up really well for whatever I might do next. And it was really nice to be able to pay back a large chunk of my law school loans rather than have to like chip at it a little bit more slowly. It was like nice and relief just to be like, all right, here's a bonus. And now I get to like put a huge amount towards my student loans.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Thank you so much for taking the time and breaking down all these different pieces of Big Law and the good and the bad. And I think it's really helpful to see both sides of it. And I'm going to guess that there's going to be a lot of that in the upcoming book that you're writing. So could you share a little bit about that book and how people can follow you on your book writing journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So my book will be a nonfiction book about my time in Big Law, but also from a bunch of interviews I've done with other associates, counsels, partners. Going back to what I was saying about, I loved hearing the stories that other people had about their Big Law experiences, and we shared them so much with each other. And I always thought they were so fascinating. But when I looked around, there were only novels, like fictional accounts of Big Law. And I was like, that's weird, because I think in this situation, the truth is way stranger than fiction, and the truth is way like more fascinating than fiction. So I was like, you know what? I want to write a nonfiction account of my experiences in Big Law and other people's experiences in Big Law, and really just put that out into the world so that people can understand a little bit more their motivations, the people around them, and not get bogged into the expectations of needing to bill 3,000 hours every year, especially if you know that you're not a person who can do that. So yeah, that's kind of what it's about. It's still a work in progress. And if you want to follow along, the best place is probably my Substack. It's just my name, cecexie.substack.com, or follow along on my YouTube channel. I am vlogging bits and pieces of it, and will probably do more announcements once I actually have it done.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. I can't wait. Thank you so much. And I am very excited to read this book once it comes out. So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Angela.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope that was helpful in giving you a view into what it really looks like to practice in Big Law. I'm going to link all of CeCe's stuff in the description below. So click on all the links, check her out on all the platforms. She's absolutely incredible. And I'm going to link here 2 other videos about Big Law in case you're interested and want to know a little bit more. And I'll see you guys in the next one.